ask. Dr. Joshi, was it a minefield laid out for India with the reference to Jafar Express in Balochistan and no reference to Pahalgam? Was Mr. Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, able to avoid it? In your appreciation, what do you make of there not being a joint statement?
Well, first of all, not having a joint statement is not unusual in such organizations because they go by consensus, meaning everyone must agree. But my point is, why did we then agree to Balochistan in the first place? Meaning, why was Balochistan included? I can understand Pakistan objecting to Pahalgam. So, each organization has a different politics within it. The SCO actually shouldn't, because the SCO is meant to fight terrorism. One of the very important goals of the SCO is combating terrorism. But all I can say is that there was some local politics, individual politics playing their part. Of course, one cannot expect Pakistan to accept the reference to Pahalgam easily. Because I must point out to you that on June 7th, there was a BRICS parliamentary meeting in Brasilia. And our speaker, Mr. Om Birla, had gone for that. And in that meeting, they accepted a reference to Pahalgam. Pahalgam was criticism or condemnation of Pahalgam was accepted there. And who was in the meeting? India, Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa, Iran, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia.
Correct.
All the BRICS countries. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not very clear as to what kind of politics played out in the SCO in Beijing, but certainly the presence of Pakistan itself would indicate that there would be no chance that Pahalgam would be accepted.
Robinder Sachdev, a trap laid out for India at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with this reference to Balochistan with that Jafar Express, and was India able to avoid that?
Thank you. I mean, I would not exactly think and say it's a trap laid out, but yes, you're so very right. It was an intent to, highlight Balochistan as a region which is infected by terror without any reference to Pahalgam, therefore kind of, indicating that in this region, let's say the South Asia, the greater worry and danger of terrorism is only in Balochistan and nowhere else, that way kind of setting the agenda one. But secondly, on the other hand, even if it was a trap laid out, I think it has come down badly on China, being the host of a summit. And if you're not able to come up with a joint statement, is often looked as being, not a successful summit, so to say, right? And India, to my knowledge, has never before at the SCO, at any of the ministerial conclaves, I think they have, defense, they have other also healthcare and a few others, 4 or 5 other, verticals. India has never kind of stayed out and said that we will not sign on this consensus. India has typically gone along with the consensus, valuing, let's say, regional cooperation over, in some senses, our national interest, because we do see that the regional issues equally affect our national interest. But
terrorism affects everyone. But in this case, anyway, SCO is not supposed to discuss bilateral issues. It's that game that Pakistan was trying to play, perhaps with China, to try and slip in Balochistan and not have Pahalgam reference. And Bhavya, how do you view there not being a joint statement at the end of the defense ministers' meet?
First of all, I would like to appreciate that he did not sign this joint statement. But it's the right time to discuss why this SCO, a very important country like India, did not get its say. Its concerns was not addressed. I honestly believe there are 3 main reasons for this. One, if you remember, it's been 5 years since India gave a clean sheet to Galwan Valley intrusion by Chinese troops. When PM Modi came out and said there was no intrusion happened at all. After 2 days after External Affairs Ministry had released a statement saying Chinese troops tried to, erect some kind of structure in Galwan Valley on our side of line of actual control. And 20 of our soldiers gave their life to this. And still, the Narendra Modi came out and literally gave clean sheet to China. This was just like, they just take our thing for granted. They'll just take our country for granted. If we do not have a strong prime minister who cannot even acknowledge that 20 of our soldiers have died, and this is because of your intrusion, right? This is the first reason. The second one, we have a trade deficit of $99.2 billion with China today. And to deal with it, we definitely need a leader with some kind of economic respect to Indian economy, at least. We have known about Narendra Modi's economic policies in the past and what a disaster they have been, including demonetization or GST. But with China, this can also be a reason. And recently, during Operation Sindoor as well, China gave open support to Pakistan, whether it is in providing intelligence assistance or satellite assistance or even military and jet. We can totally see why they had the audacity to not include our concern, but include the Balochistan point there.
Okay.
We
Let me bring
definitely
in Tuhin
need
Sinha.
to make a very strong
Tuhin Sinha,
statement and not make
respond.
a disaster out of our diplomacy.
Okay, the Congress
And
says
foreign policy.
the Narendra Modi government has made a disaster of our diplomacy and foreign policy. Respond that the Congress's point is that India stands isolated in a very important grouping like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Well, good evening, Gaurav. Good evening, everybody. You know, the absence of a joint statement, the onus for the absence of a joint statement at SCO squarely lies upon the host. India has made two things very clear. India's stand against terrorism is resolute and unwavering, unlike the trade-off which it is for some of the countries. And number two, India will successfully circumvent any attempts at hypocrisy to rehabilitate Pakistan. Now, the point is, this is a Congress party which had, in similar situations, submitted to the designs of Pakistan and signed the Sharm el-Sheikh. So they don't need to they should not be lecturing us on foreign policy. You need to realize that even after Operation Sindoor, several countries have openly supported India. That includes Germany, that includes Australia, that includes Japan. In fact, even, countries like UAE, Qatar and Saudi Arabia had been extremely receptive to the arguments made by the diplomatic teams which had gone out, which only shows that our trade engagements with all of these countries would continue. In a kinetic engagement, in a kinetic conflict, in contemporary world, not many countries take an overt stand one way or the other. But you need to realize that there is a perception of India not, getting its way temporarily. It's also because the world is taking its time to come to terms with India's military and economic might. You need to realize that unlike
India's not having it our way.
No country can ignore India on the...
But they did.
No, you need to realize that unlike before 2014, no country can ignore India right now because of its economic might.
But they just...
Sandeep, is there merit in the Congress saying Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy or his actions vis-a-vis China in Galwan were weak, and that is why China does not take India seriously, and that is why India stood isolated in their view at the SCO Defense Ministers meet?
Absolutely not, Gaurav. I mean, in fact, India has been very clear, very resolute on this terrorism line, at least in the last 11 years. And one of the panelists was referring to the Sharm el-Sheikh declaration. I mean, that was absolute humiliation. I mean, just 9 months after one of the worst terror attacks on Indian soil, 26/11, you had the Prime Minister, signing off on a joint statement with the Pakistani Prime Minister where he admits that Pakistan is also a victim of terror. He brings Balochistan into the statement just to please the Pakistanis. This is, never happened. This kind of shameful joint statement at a time when your citizens have been murdered. And this is something that Defense Minister Rajnath Singh did not sign off on today. And this statement that India has made, Gaurav, on cross-border terrorism was not just here at the SCO, but at the United Nations as well. A similar line was taken by India, which called out Pakistan for state sponsorship of terror and cross-border terror. So we've been very consistent. In the last 24 hours, we've called out Pakistan on 2 different forums. for cross-border terror. And this was not the stance that we saw earlier, where there were all kinds of efforts to mollycoddle Pakistan and try and do business with them over the dead bodies of Indians.
Let me bring in Dr. Joshi to weigh in on this. Dr. Joshi, you heard the Congress party spokesperson, you heard the BJP spokesperson. Is there merit in the Congress saying that post-Galwan, India's stance was weak, and that is why countries like China don't take us seriously? There's also the issue of the trade deficit, and that is how Pakistan is able to slip in references like Balochistan, which of course was not agreed to by Rajnath Singh, and the BJP saying this wasn't a disaster like in Sharm el-Sheikh, where Dr. Manmohan Singh had accepted a reference to Balochistan. It didn't happen in 2025.
Well, let me start with the end. I think they are right when they said that we definitely got into the back foot by the Sharm el-Sheikh acceptance. Meaning we thought we were doing something nice, but turned out to be a bit of a disaster, diplomatic disaster. Now, insofar as Galwan and other things are concerned, it is true that we were taken by surprise. It is true that we were taken by surprise. But thereafter, the government strategy involved trying to build down the crisis. And I think at that point in time, if to say that you've been invaded or something has happened would have been a problem. And I think that was not true, because what the Chinese really did was not to actually invade in that sense, but to establish blockades. They established blockades and they prevented our patrolling in places which we also have claim along the LAC. So it is a different kind of a situation. But when it comes to the present thing, I think Rajnath Singh is right, because there are strong. This country has extremely strong feelings about what happened in Pahalgam. And as I told you earlier, this SCO is meant to be, or SCO, if you look at its charter, there's a whole lot about fighting terrorism. They have counter-terrorism exercises and that kind of stuff. So terrorism is an important element of the SCO charter, and therefore to not include Pahalgam, I think straight away was travesty. Now the point is that in SCO meetings, it works on consensus. I mean, one member says no, it's no. And that one member, is the guilty party. Is the party responsible for Pahalgam. So you can hardly, it would have been really surprising, if I may put it that way, if Pakistan had actually agreed to condemning itself. You see? So if you take it that way, so I can understand why Pakistan did what it did. But I think the other SCO members could have come out with a stronger statement. As I told you, it depends from institution to institution. In the case of the SCO, it is something which works by consensus.
Purely by consensus. But should India, Robinder Sachdev, and that's the point, Dr. Manoj Joshi is also alluding to, should India have used its diplomatic might to convince other members to make a stronger case on Pahalgam, or because China and Pakistan have this tango, India perhaps decided it's not worth wasting your breath, but there was no reference to Balochistan either. So it's no win India, it's no win Pakistan.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's complex. And, let's go back. I think what India has done by, not signing on to the communique today has reminded the SCO, as Dr. Joshi is saying, the founding principles of the SCO, I think within the Article 1, is a focus on territorial integrity, regional security, cross-border terrorism, no radical extremism to be spread. That is the founding basis of the SCO, because it's the Central Asian countries, Russia and China on one side, and India, etc. So that's the founding principle of the SCO. So if the SCO, I think today's act by India is a reminder for the SCO to go back to the basics. And
So it's
also remember,
advantage India. That's the point you're trying to make. It's advantage India that Pakistan was not able to bring in that Balochistan point, and India was able to send across that message that RATS as an organization, part of SCO, is all about countering terrorism and having a rapid response to terrorism.